reminding us of Ghost Rider's Spirit of Vengeance. I was going to give the movie a pass since it got through the main logos in under 30 seconds, but when you continue the textual harassment by just repeating the exact same thing over a black screen for another 20 seconds, you've officially reached the end of my patience.
A mistrial was declared today.
News position is always a sin, but the opening news position dump cut to stylized images to give the movie an edge cliche earns you a few extra. And now we're finishing up the full 3 minutes of opening pointlessness with expositional comic book panels and close-up weapons porn. Look, I love the tweak of a barrel nipple or an explicit bullet penetration as much as the next guy, but are we ever going to actually movie?
They shot him right in our front yard.
Letting your kids play in the front yard. That's what God created backyards for, you irresponsible heathen. Movie is now establishing the city with the most generic drone flyover shots of a skyscraper and bridge. And at what point do you just admit this movie was spit out by an algorithm and no humans were actually involved? Checking your hair in the side view mirror. Not only did you just exit a vehicle that probably has both a rear view mirror and a mirror on the drop-down sunblind, but hair in this mirror may be closer than it appears.
Do I fix your makeup for you?
At least we're dispensing with any kind of nuance right from the start. Let's go straight to hair-triggered public choking so we all really know the score.
He does to those bastards what me and you can only fantasize about.
Cops fantasizing about murder.
Ink, keep your nose clean.
Yeah. Sure thing, Pops.
Obvious jokes. That one's a little too on the nose, don't you think?
Down at the docks!
Right, yeah, crystal bullet.
I hear he's a sick of
Bad accent competitions.
probably going up to the heads and queens.
Discount Don Watto Corleone is super racist. Also, the Italian mob is such a fixture in film and TV that when it comes to the stereotypes, we don't question it too much. But this whole scene is like a caricature of a stereotype, making this both offensive and one level too deep on the generalization scale.
Let's just all calm down here, okay?
Director's plea to the cast to cut back on the overacting somehow gets cut into the movie, and also remains unheeded. The Punisher thinks the best way to subdue a man is a knee to the middle of the back. And it works! Big Pun turns off all the lights and hops on this table very quickly. Too quickly, in fact. And I would have let that slide if the movie didn't pretend like a man the size of Ray Stevenson could do that unnoticed. We just saw a bunch of platters and place settings. Do you really think they would go undisturbed? Also, after Punisher kills the lights, instead of using some sort of night vision tech to take full advantage of the darkness, he immediately lights a flare for full dramatic effect, essentially negating any previous advantage. Maybe he just wanted it to be a flare fight. Also, he stands here in a room full of people with weapons for several seconds before making his move, and no one even takes a shot. In fact, this whole scene is so full of idiots who don't realize they have guns until right before they are brutally murdered that I'm adding 50 sins for the constant amnesia. The painting of this woman is staring right at the camera, and it will haunt me for the rest of my days. I'm gonna swim from the chandelier, the chandelier. Also, he makes at least 7 full turns on this thing. Did they build this thing on an infinite swivel? I guess he'll keep on shooting like logic doesn't exist. Like it doesn't exist! I'm not going to gore you with the details, but it would be better to see a regular punch to the face instead of having the villain's head look like they are made from soft nougat. Saffiati gives him his car, but why would you assume the Punisher doesn't have a car? But then the Punisher takes the car, so why didn't he have a car? Just saying that getting around on foot is not an efficient way to dole out punishment. This looks like a badass hero fixes his own wounds because he's badass and doesn't have time to go to the ER cliche. But it may also be due to a lack of health insurance. Movie spends a minute of its runtime watching these random baddies parkour their way into the building. Because parkour!
No mountain too high, no river too deep.
Discount Marvin Gaye covers.
Would it be all right if I took the roof instead of the door?
Movie doesn't have a relevant reason for these characters to do parkour, so it's treated as an addiction. Not since Paul Blart Mall Cop have an evil group of extreme athletes and free runners had a need this deep for both the needlessly malevolent and the totally radical. This area is so well lit, I can't believe this guy doesn't notice Frank standing on a truck a little more than 20 feet away. Also, this shot from that same distance requires a laser sight on what may be the least Punisher-like weapon I've ever seen. The Punisher misses this shot. Also, this bullet cuts through the railing and establishes poor safety standards as the real hero of this scene. McNulty survives this. This movie spends so much time on transition shots of discount Craig Ferguson walking places that I kind of wonder if the character should have been called a pedestrian instead.
None of us could foresee Frank Castle opening up hunting season on La Cosa Nostra.
Even setting aside the obvious fact that this is the kind of shit the Punisher does, Detective Soap will later show us a slideshow of all the mob families he has taken out, and considering that organized crime is obviously a topic of concern for the FBI, the Punisher should be all over their radar.
How is it we're not all over Frank Castle?
Because we have a real national security threat.
And we haven't been trained to handle more than one thing at a time. All other crime must wait its turn.
Hey.
Hey, flashback, gravestone pounding. eye close up, traumatic backstories position.
Your buddies from the Bureau told me the city is under some kind of terror threat. New Yorkers are a bit sensitive about that, if you know what I mean.
Using 9/11 as a conversation piece in a terrible, ultra-violent comic book movie.
You Krispy Kreme motherfuckers!
The delivery of that line. Also, the movie clearly went to the Power Rangers school of product placementing things.
Welcome to the Punisher Task Force.
Why in movies is the person who is the most knowledgeable about the main topic in the film always relegated to the basement and ridiculed by his coworkers? Don't we clearly live in a society that honors knowledge and proficiency over easy answers and laziness? Maybe I'm wrong about this, but honestly, I don't want to take the time to figure it out. The fact that I can't find a real or fictional university by this name is proof that back in 2008, Marvel didn't know how to Easter egg properly.
This is ground zero.
Considering the other veiled references to 9/11 in this movie, I can't tell if this one is intentional or not, so I'm going to give them the detriment of the doubt.
Take a look at this.
You better come take a look at this expositional slideshow I happen to have set up, cliche.
And by chance or fate, depending on what you believe in.
What if Origins? He just did a zoom slide. He literally just inserted a second and third slide that was just zoomed in parts of the previous slide so the audience would know where to look. He did a zoom with a slideshow.
I'll get us a pie from Milano's, best pizza in the city.
Pauly G's Slice Shop Deniers.
The alleged Punisher murders.
All of them.
I understand going for a scale to show how prolific the Punisher is with his vengeance, but the whole basement? The developmental leagues for this underworld must rival college football and minor league baseball. Either that or there wouldn't be any villains left for Daredevil, Luke Cage, or Jessica Jones. Iron Fist has been omitted because of creative differences.
You ever heard of jihadiblogger.com?
Skip.
It's gun show season in Virginia. No background checks, no problems.
While no background checks in reality does seem to be an actual problem, I would like to focus on the sheer volume of guns this movie thinks Micro needs to acquire for Frank. It's as if he's using these things single use, when we all know you can put them in for a normal wash cycle, top rack, heated dry.
I know this thing with the Fed is eating you up inside, but that doesn't mean you pack up your tent.
The Punisher being overly concerned with what Jerome Powell is doing with interest rates.
You're fighting a war against the assholes who slip through the raindrops.
How do assholes slip through raindrops? The f*** does this even mean?
Collateral damage.
Naming a truly terrible movie that is still somehow better than the one you're in.
You had a family.
I get the implication of separating a family from a loved one and provider, but when movies do this, it makes it seem like our society values life on a sliding scale, in which we are more okay with some people dying. Not saying society doesn't do this, just saying I don't like it.
Statistically speaking, you shouldn't have been able to survive this.
I know, I sinned it in everything, but at least now the medical professional will tell us how he lived so we can rest easy, right? No? Just brought it up so we would remember how ridiculous it was? Guess we'll just sit it again then.
Your facial muscles, tendons, bone structure, everything. It was destroyed.
Well, everything on the face part, the back of your head, and the rest of you were relatively unscathed. You know, because those parts are notoriously glass resistant. We now cut to this convenient and random as hell jigsaw puzzle graphic in Times Square, because even though the movie hasn't mentioned it yet, it will be his new name. So f*** you, non-comic book readers. Enjoy your confusion for the next few minutes.
Doesn't think before he talks, just like his mother.
Weird time to bring that up. Also, probably not the worst thing he's inherited from this family.
From now on, you call me Jigsaw.
Yes, his face is now made up of a bunch of pieces, but Jigsaw is still a big leap, especially without first considering names like Patchwork or Mosaic. Serving applesauce without pork chops.
Did you know kidneys and applesauce are a delicacy in Sweden?
I took him at his word and spent a ton of time searching for a recipe, but all I found was fermented herring. Super elite special ops force dude doesn't notice a child sitting 5 feet to his left.
Who punishes you?
Who punishes the Punisher? Great question. Maybe Damon Lindelof could take a shot at turning this story into a television masterpiece so we can find out.
I can't find my red pen. Mom, I need it.
Kids.
And two, you will never, ever have to look at your reflection again.
But what if he needs to put in his contacts? It's actually kind of touching that he breaks all these mirrors for his brother, but Jim's gonna get 42 years of bad luck for the sake of vanity. Also, Toombs takes the time to break all these mirrors, but every single one of them retains the ability to reflect an image. If he really wanted to help his brother, he'd simply take them all off the wall, which honestly seems less painful anyway.
We don't talk vampire.
Linguistic discriminacism.
Always knew you'd be a good boss, Billy.
Thanks, brother.
Nepotism.
Never once seen a banger that could quit. Too f***ing stupid.
Frank here is a genuine asshole, and despite this, the movie will continue to treat him like a straightforward hero as opposed to a complex and problematic one.
You don't think he's going to go for revenge? It's not a question of if, it's a matter of when.
It's actually a question of why he hasn't done it already, and why did the Punisher need Nedry to clue him in to this obvious possibility.
It's McGinty and his urban free-flow gang.
He's a mean motherfucker.
McGinty and the Urban Free Flow Gang is not the name of a mean motherfucker and his death crew. McGinty and the Urban Free Flow Gang is a 70s funk band, and you will not convince me any differently. Brother James hasn't destroyed this mirror. Liar. Look at all that Mountain Dew! PepsiCo sure was working hard peddling this stuff in the 2000s, to the point where I actually believe this place was moving enough product to warrant an entire shelf. But I also wonder if all that caffeine and sugar is responsible for the sword in this guy's head, and also 3 out of 4 of my trips to the ER around that same time period. Okay, that was funny. But also, where has that tone been the rest of the movie? Most of the movie plays like it thinks it's being dead serious, and then every once in a while it decides to wink at parody. I wish the movie would pick a lane, and honestly, I'd like that lane to be intentional self-parody. Your buddy gets hit with a rocket, they look back and forth at each other and then at Punisher. This doesn't happen quickly, and at least 10 seconds go by as he casually switches weapons and lines up these shots. The movie hasn't made Frank good at his job so much as it's made the villains bad at theirs. Visual confirmation of Frank's refusal to recycle weapons, and proof that he is the most frequent buyer of illegal firearms in the city and most likely the main driving force behind the market.
Something for something.
The Punisher seems on board with this offer, but the scene cuts, and the next time we see these two, TP has impaled him on the fence and has done some parkour on his face. So I'm left wondering if this is the favor he asked for.
Internal Affairs tried to get Nicky to rat me out. He wouldn't. So they send him undercover.
Is the FBI using undercover assignments as punishment? Especially for agents who have shown that their loyalty to individuals is stronger than their loyalty to the job or agency? Well, I guess that explains Point Break and the entire Fast and Furious franchise. This discount Reservoir Dogs on for some time. You named your strip club Volga? Volga? Was the name Volgina taken? This machismo battle establishes a general strength-skill equivalency for these two characters, a detail that will never again be important to the film. In his search for the money, Billy checks under these DVDs, before the closet, basement, or even under the bed. And now that I think of it, Nicky did say he was laundering the money through a strip club earlier, but considering these search tactics, I'm beginning to wonder if he even checked the strip club before checking these DVDs. This is not a face you can trust, but they trust him anyway. And they walk in with him behind them.
This day was bound to come sooner or later, wasn't it?
What is the point of soap? Not that soap, this soap. Feels like comic relief, but I do not feel relief. He's trying to catch the Punisher, but is also helping him? Him being a neutral party is more questionable than Sweden during World War II. Not only does he take the time to commit this doll slaughter, but did he also take the time to set them up in this line? It's either that or Grace sets them up all creepy like this every day, and honestly, I feel just as good about sitting that. Leaving the Doritos out and not offering any to your guests. We have to blur it, but the inside of Ink's head appears to be completely made of liquid. Don't do drugs, kids. In a room filled with things to explore, including several ammunition cases, Grace makes a beeline to the backstory case with keepsakes because movie has to pretend to hit some more emotional beats so we don't start to think it only exists to create extreme cartoon violence. Installing backlighting in your This Is My Dead Family memory box.
I red, white, and blue.
Comparing your poop to the flag is not patriotic, and a glaring sign that you need to see a gastroenterologist.
So, you're gonna give me and my brother here the immunity and the money.
And they do.
What's an MRE?
Meal, ready to eat.
I mean, technically, that should be MRTE, right? Why not just go with ready-to-eat meal? And then you can call it an RTEM. That's only 2 syllables when MRE is 3. Why was I not consulted?
Don't go.
Oh, skip! The director said, give him grip strengtheners. We're 20 takes in, and we've run out of the apples needed to be sure that the audience knows this homicidal maniac is indeed an asshole.
Just like Uncle Sam, bro. We recruit in troubled neighborhoods. Offer $100,000 towards a college education they'll never get, and promise nobody ever has to go to Iraq.
This sudden social commentary comes completely out of left field and shows that the writers could have made all the characters more intelligent, but for some reason chose not to. Making Micro's dead mom the last thing we see does work for maximum effect on the audience, but the movie makes it seem like Frank sees this last as well, once again calling into question his situational awareness.
Hey, I asked you a question.
You know what they say, you can't spell Dear God, that was a terrible Punisher moment without Dear God, that was a terrible pun.
Don't die on me.
Cliche. You know what's great for a movie right as it reaches the tension climax, with characters we care about being in immediate peril? A long-winded dialogue, heavy scene, in a chapel where our hero does anything other than immediately going after the bad guys. I mean, that's just movie-making 101 stuff.
Sometimes I'd like to get my hands on God.
Theophilia.
If I remember right, they're not called the 10 suggestions.
You're correct. In the original language, they are closer to the 10 words or the 10 sayings. That whole commandments part was an English translation thing, so maybe this point isn't as solid as you think it is. Every group of hired gunmen show up walking in a single file line. Why? Do gangs do marching drills? This movie continues to prolong this battle preparation as if it thinks action scenes are some sort of tantric experience. Enough of the warplay, movie. Get to the climax. Also, this gun-cocking orgasm of pre-battle nonsense is designed to show the audience that these bad guys do in fact have guns. Surprise! With all the gunmen hanging out of the roof and in windows, no one notices these two cops hanging out in the open right down the street.
Cops will be all over this place once the fireworks start.
Wouldn't worry about that. I called in a explosives permit.
With every piece of logic this movie has chosen to completely ignore, now it starts justifying its actions. I'd almost be impressed if we weren't already within 10 minutes of it being over. God may accept deathbed confessions, but when you try that shit on me, I just have more sense. I swear the way the camera adores the weapons throughout this movie, they should have just called it the Gunisher. Did he just fly? How is this game of kick the can more effective than just throwing a grenade into the room? Despite all his tactical gear, nothing about this hallway assault seems to be all that tactical. This completely unnecessary knee slide to an exposed position works because the coolness achieved by wielding dual pistols apparently also activates the force barrier bonus. Cool shot, but was it in their plan to wait for him in this room the whole time? If so, it wasn't necessary for him to even deal with these guys right now. He could have just sprinted on to the next save point. The only difference between this guy wildly spraying gunfire and the Punisher wildly spraying gunfire is that the Punisher's works because the plot requires it. Jim chooses a kick to the face instead of immediately killing the Punisher using pretty much any weapon, ensuring the required hand-to-hand combat quota is met.
That would be a torn meniscus.
Narrating your own fights.
James! Good!
Would have actually made this movie better.
This is just the beginning.
Threatening the audience with sequels. Haha, sequels.
Nicky, he said you were one of the good guys.
That was before the Punisher shot him. Nicky may want to reevaluate his stance, but he can't. What with being shot to death by our hero and all. This better not be one of those silly scenes where the aloof character isn't going to notice that they're walking by themselves all of a sudden. Oh, f*** you, movie.
Give me your wallet.
Based on this scene feeling completely detached and unimportant to the story, I'm going to say that what they've done here is put an end credits scene before the credits. It's getting a sin either way, but it's important to note the distinction.
Yes, you must give us all a good spanking.
You telling me one guy came in here and killed 8 men with 8 extremely well-aimed shots in just a few seconds? No way.
Parkour! Michael! Parkour! Parkour! Extreme! Parkour! Parkour!
You know, I've been waiting for someone like you.
No thanks.
I f***ed up, Micro.
I f***ed up.
All right, Miss Tyler, here comes the last of it. I wish you every good luck.
I'm gonna get my applesauce back.
Face facts, my friend. You're just no longer that good, Will Hunting.
You know what I like to do?
Yeah.
It's called cocaine, and you don't want no part of this shit.
Please, sir, I want some more.
For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you.
Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says I just whipped your ass.
I'm here to see the jigsaw.
You out of luck. No jigsaw here.
I want to play a game.